If you're adding or subtracting, okay, that means that you have to have the same radical or radicand. And if you have the same radicand, which means you have the same number in the house, then you can add or subtract the numbers that are on the outside. So you have negative 2 minus 3, and that's going to give you negative 5 square roots of 5. Okay, but if you have a radical that's like number 2, which is negative 2 square roots of 2 minus square root of 18, then you have to factor. So if you factor this, because you want to have the same radicand, if you factor this, you have 2 and 9, and this is 3 and 3, okay? And we're going to bring out the 3's, so you have 3 square roots of 2, and then negative 2, and the square root of 2. So now we can combine these because they have the same radical. So we can subtract these, negative 2 minus 3, that's going to give us negative 5 square roots of 2. And that will be our simplified answer. Because you can only add or subtract them if they have the same radicand. If they don't have the same radicand, you cannot add or subtract them. That's why we had to do this factor tree. Okay, for number 3 is easy because you have 3 square roots of 6 plus 3 square roots of 6. You have the same radicand, 6 and 6, so you keep the square root of 6, and you just add the 3's together, and you get, excuse me, you get 6 square roots of 6. Number 4, you have negative 2 square roots of 5, 3 square roots of 20. Okay, you do not have the same radical, so you have to do a factor tree. So you have 4 and 5. Then you can factor that as 2 and 2. So you have a pair of 2's that you can bring on the outside. If you bring these on the outside, you're left with 5 in the inside, and you would just bring down this 3. Okay, if you bring down the 3, then you have negative 6 because you're going to multiply on the outside. And then if you multiply on the outside, then you get negative 6. So you have negative 2, and you have these 2 square roots of 5, and then you're going to do negative 2 minus 6, and that's going to give you negative 8 square roots of 5. Okay, so remember, any dates that come on the outside, you'll put them on the outside, but if you already have numbers on the outside up here, you have to bring that down and multiply it by the number that you put on the outside. So you have to multiply the 2 numbers together. Okay, number 5. Number 5 does not have the same radical, so you're going to factor both of these. And you have 6 and 9, and 2 and 3, and 3 and 3, and you can circle all those. Okay, what comes out is a pair of 3's. What stays in is 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. You already have this 3 on the outside, but then you have the negative 2 on the outside as well, so you're going to multiply those together. So you have negative 6 square roots of 6. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the other side, so you have 4 and 6, 2 and 2, 2 and 3. Okay, so anything that goes on the outside, we're going to put on the outside, so 2. And then you have this 2 times 3 in the inside. And then you're going to bring down the other 2. So 2 times 2 is going to give you 4. So you have 4 square roots of 6. Now you can add these because they're the same. So you're going to add negative 6 plus 4. And that's going to give you negative 2 square roots of 6. So for number 6, you have square root of 2, and then, negative 2 times the square root of 54 minus square root of 54. If there is no coefficient, there's a coefficient of 1. Okay, we can go ahead and subtract these. So negative 2 minus 1 is going to give you negative 3 square roots of 54. So if you can simplify them, simplify them. So 54. Okay, so I can simplify them where I have a date of 3's that comes out, and then inside I have 2 times 3 because those are lonely, they don't have a date, so you can combine those. Then you bring down this negative 3. So now I can multiply them, so I can get negative 9 square roots of 6. And that's what would be simplified. All right, number 7. Number 7, I have negative 2 square root of 6 plus 3 square root of 24. These don't match, obviously, so I have to do a factor tree on 24 because it's the larger one. So then I have a date of 2's that comes out. And the 2 and the 3 don't have dates, so they stay in the house as a 6. 2 can come out, but then I can't forget about this 3 on the outside. So that's going to make 6 square roots of 6. And then I bring down this. And when I'm adding, I'm only going to add the outside numbers. So negative 2 plus 6 is going to give me 4 square roots of 6. Okay, when you're multiplying, you're basically going to distribute this square root of 2 to both. Well, when you multiply a radical times a radical, you can just put 2 times 2 is square root of 4. But when you multiply a radical times a whole number, the whole number goes on the outside. So I have 4 on the outside, and then you just have the square root of 2. We can simplify the square root of 4 because the square root of 4 is going to give us 2. So 2 plus 4 square roots of 2. There's not 2 square roots of 2. There's 2 plus 4 square roots of 2. Okay, next we have number 9. Number 9, you have square root of 6 times the square root of 2 plus 2. Okay, so you're going to distribute this. You have 2 square roots, so we can do square root of 12. And then the whole number, 2 goes on the outside. Then we have 6. Then we see if we can simplify this. If you can simplify 12, which you can, so it's 3 and then 4, and then 2 and then 2, I can pull out a date of what? Pull out a date of 2's, and then I have 3 left, plus 2 square root of 6. And I'm not going to simplify 6 because, look, if I simplify it, I don't have a pair of dates that I can pull out, so you don't even have to do that. So you can just leave it as 2 square root of 3 plus 2 square root of 6. Okay, with the next one, you have negative 3, or the square root of negative 3, times the square root of 5 plus the square root of 3. So we're going to distribute this, and they're all radicals. So, and you have the negative on the outside, so this is going to be a negative 15. And then when we multiply these, it's going to be, negative square root of 9. Negative square root of 9 is going to give you negative 3 because the square root of 9 is a whole number and it gives you 3. And we're just going to leave it like that because you can't take any pairs out. Okay, for the next one, I have the square root of 3 and then times 5. And then the square root of 3 times the square root of 3. So the square root of 3 times 5, you're going to have the 5 on the outside, remember, because that's a whole number, times the square root of 3. And then plus square root of 3 times square root of 3 is the square root of 9. Okay, well, the square root of 9 is 3. So it's just 5 square root of 3 plus 3. Number 12, you have the square root of 3 times negative 6, which was the square root, plus the square root of 2. So we're going to distribute that by multiplying. So these two are radicals, so we can do negative square root of 18, which I can break that apart so I can simplify it, so I'm going to do that later. And then I have plus the square root of 6. You can't break down the square root of 6. Okay? Break apart the square root of 18 because I think it's going to give me a 6. So square root of 2 times square root of 9, and then I have 3, 3, and then I have the 2. So I can bring out a pair of, okay, so I can do the pair of 3's, bring that out. I still have that negative on the outside, and then I have 2, and then plus square root of 6. So this is the most simplified way to write this. All right, number 13, okay, you have a radical and a radical that you can multiply together. The 2 just hangs out on the outside, so you have square root of 6 times the square root of 2, which is the square root of 12. The 2 hangs out on the outside because it's a whole number. Okay, then I'm going to multiply, so I multiplied that together. Square root of 6 times the square root of 3 is going to give you square root of 18. So we're going to break these apart. So when I break them apart, I have the 2 and 2 that I can pull out. So I'm going to pull out 2 and 2. I'm going to leave the 3 inside. I'm going to do the same thing to 18. For 18, when I break this down, I'm going to pull out the 3 and 3. So 3 and 3 come on the outside, and 2's left in the inside. Anything that I had initially that was in the front, I have to multiply it by whatever is in the front over here. Okay, so now I have 4 square roots of 3 plus 3 square roots of 2. And I cannot add those together because they have different radicals. So this is different. So when you multiply first, and then you go back and simplify at the end. When you're adding or subtracting, you simplify first to make them the same. Okay, so number 14. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to distribute this 5 square roots of 6 to the square root of 6 and into 5. So when you multiply these, you can only multiply the ones that are both radical. So we have 5 square roots of 36, which that's good, because if we have 5 square roots of 36, then the square root of 36 is just 6. So it becomes a whole number. Then you multiply this 5 square roots of 6 times 5, but that gives us 25 square roots of 6, because I'm only multiplying the 5s, the whole numbers. So then I have 25 square roots of 6. So now I have 30, because I'm going to multiply those numbers, plus 25 square roots of 6. And I have that simplified. Okay, so you just have to keep in mind that when you're multiplying these, you're only multiplying the square root and the square roots together and keeping the 5 on the outside, or if you're multiplying the whole number, you're multiplying the whole number and the whole number and then just keeping the square roots.